Saloni is a senior product designer at N0 with a multidisciplinary background encompassing data visualization, urban design, and extended reality applications. Leveraging her expertise, she specializes in merging data and design to represent complex environmental data, addressing climate issues at large while working across concept development, visual design, interaction design, and product design. So let's give a warm welcome to Saloni to the stage.
Okay, awesome. How's everyone doing? Hi everyone, I am Saloni. I'm a senior product designer at N0. Past couple of years, I've spent designing climate dashboards, visualization, products, XR, everything in between that you can think of. For the past year, I had this incredible opportunity to work with N0 to create a decarbonization tool from 0 to 1. So this decarbonization tool focused on helping governments to create sustainable decarbonization goals, track them, and figure out how to get there. Like I can make a goal, oh, I'm going to reach 50% reduction, but how are you going to do that? So last year spent on it, and during this time, as you can figure out, if you're working with the government, you have to create a lot of dashboards. They love it. I was creating dashboards after dashboards, visualizations after visualizations, and I was like, maybe I could create a framework to do this really quick because this is becoming a repetitive process for me. So today I'm going to share the process and the insights I've gained over the past year in creating this dashboards and visualizations. So let's dive in. This is a really quick glimpse of how we're structuring the presentation. We do the discovery, understand the user, have a really strong foundation. Yesterday, someone said that's cliche. I love that, but we still got to do it. The second portion of it, data exploration, how the data looks like, how the data feels like. Oops. Okay. Here we go. And then we move to design exploration. I won't delve really deep in design exploration. You need a whole talk of it separately. And in the time of design exploration, please put next talk and just rewind it again so everyone can go back to it. And then the end is creating like a really important question. Do you actually need a dashboard, or a single visualization can suffice your all product or data needs? Okay. So the first portion of the discovery phase, understanding the user. For instance, if you're creating, like one of the platforms that I was creating was a climate education dashboard for the people in the city. And something that was super important to me is when we started testing with people and getting some information, when you use climate jargon or research terminologies, it deferred them, and they could not make the connection to the data and explode it. So when I removed all the jargon and just started like adding explainers, tooltips, and bridging that information gap, and like also creating groups of like, okay, how does my neighborhood look like? How does my street look like? Making it something personal. When you understand your user, you can create very, very focused visualizations or dashboards that work with them. So, however, if you're creating, like, let's say an example of sustainability analyst or a consultant, you want to focus on their role and the decision that they make. So if you're a consultant, I would aim to simplify your flow and your data for advanced decision-making or exploration options. Okay. Here we go. So the next important aspect is understanding what the user is trying to achieve. And honestly, reading between the lines. So if you go to an analyst and ask, hey, what is your ideal product? They'll say, hey, I have this 500 tables, and can you just make one huge table out of it, and then I'll work through it. But reading between the lines is just understanding what are they doing with the final table. Like, are they trying to find inefficient buildings? Are they allocating budget? What are they trying to achieve? And that goal is going to help you start your design exploration in what direction you want to conceptualize your visualizations. Then we go to understanding the expert user flow. This is a spreadsheet that our environmental analyst was using. And as you can see, this was one of the spreadsheets, one of the 50 spreadsheets with 400 rows in it. So when you look at these spreadsheets and you shadow your users, you will see like, how do they go from start to finish without my product or without my visualization or dashboard? And when you look at this, you'll find significant gaps where you can help them accelerate their process. So for instance, an analyst might use like complex data sheet, add insights, create decks, for like send it to stakeholders, go back and keep on doing that until everyone agrees. So when you're shadowing, there are two things you want to look here. The first one is, what is the decision-making data? Like, what out of all these columns and all these data, what are people looking at that is going to make decisions? Sometimes it's consumption, like efficiency ratings, benchmarking. There are a lot of columns that could be useful for, but what is driving decisions there? And this would form the base of your design exploration. The next portion of it is understanding the pain points. What is making very difficult for the users to achieve their goal? For instance, are there too many interdependent tables hindering decision making? Are there issues showcasing progress? Are there issues tracking progress? To address these pain points, what I usually do is create an impact versus effort quad chart. Start with a low effort, high impact, and this is the best portion or best quadrant to start with because you can get really, really early validation, gain momentum, and start getting feedback. The next portion, which is one of the most difficult for me, is finding a differentiator. What are the new insights that you can bring to the table? For instance, when I was working with N0, a lot of the companies, our competitors, were providing people with decarbonization plans. But what made N0 different is they use the data model to work with. You can put your emission reduction goal, you can put like where you're located, you can put your budget, and it would help you create a spectrum of emission reduction plans, and you can select based on what works best for you. And that transparency and flexibility was something that differentiated N0 from the other products. And that's what I focused on when I started creating visualizations. So then we come to a really, really important intersection. Do you need a dashboard or a single visualization can suffice? So, oh my God. Okay. For instance, a data visualization, what I mean by it is it's a single chart that showcases a maximum of 4 variables to make decisions. These are kind of exploratory, but they're focused on key decision making and usually without advanced nesting options. While the dashboard, on the other hand, provides a comprehensive understanding of data. It allows really deep exploration, such as, let's say, comparing emissions of a state and then finding what city is the problem, what building is the problem, and just going down slowly to the path of finding your problem site. In my experience, a lot of the problems or a lot of the data solutions could be figured out with single visualization itself, and dashboard might add unnecessary complexity that might eventually delay decision making by a lot. So let's say you decided what path is best for you, based for your user case. What's next? Next is making like a really simple mental model, especially when you're creating a dashboard. So let's say you want to find the worst department. Let's say Department of Education is not doing great. what inside it it's not doing right, which is the side that's a problem, what is the source of inefficiency, and then create a decarbonization plan for it. So when you create these really simple mental model on how the user goes from point A to point B, or how you can make user go from point A to point B, then it helps you create those nested dashboards, which are meaningful and which would help meaningful exploration in it. And this recreation could also help like figuring out that, oh, maybe I just need 5 different pages and it doesn't have to be dashboard. It could just be single visualization that you're going in. So after this, we find out what data do we even have. For instance, if, let's say, in this example, your API provides like 15 different data points, but the research and the discovery work that you've done, you figured out that, oh, my user only needs 7 data points to make these decisions. You should only use 7. More is not always better. It can often confuse the user, delay decision making. This additional context building might not work out in your favor if it's not done very meaningfully. So let's say you're working through this and you're like, but maybe there's some contextual data that I want to add, and that might actually help the user gain a deeper value, like add value or get a deeper explanation of the problem. And this is one of the examples where in N0, we were working with efficiency ratings. And when we did efficiency ratings, it was a big hit. Everyone loved it. My building is not efficient. But we realized our data model could provide us breakdown based on what is the source of inefficiency. Is it natural gas? Is it water? Is it electricity? And that additional data points added a lot of value. So when they create a decarbonization plan, they'll be like, okay, I know my natural gas is not great. I'm going to focus on creating a plan that focuses on this. So adding more data points when done meaningfully could actually add a lot of value, but without understanding and putting a lot of data in something might not add any value to it. And let's say you don't have a data point that the user needs. One of the data points that we were working with, the building type, we didn't have it when we started off. So what do you do then? Then you work with your users and figure out what alternative data points can you use, like for short term until your team has the time to build it up. And that would be very helpful because sometimes you don't even need to build it up. The alternative data points would work for themselves. So what's next? The next is understanding customization. You have all your data points together, you know what you're working with, and now it's time to look at how the data points look like. Are they quantitative? Are they qualitative? Are they geospatial? What units are they using? In climate information and climate data especially, a lot of the users use separate units based on what country they are in, what kind of data they're collecting, what magnitude of data they're collecting. They would use just completely different units for it. So understanding those units, do you have a time range? Is it something like emissions or usage that would change incrementally and you need to forecast and add time? Or is it more contextual, like an address or a name or a building type? So at this point, this is a really, really good time to ideate designs and get really early feedback on what you're thinking. Always, in my opinion, talk to the users, shadow them, see what they're comfortable with, get early feedback and start implementing and going through the iteration process itself. So I'm going to accommodate the time, I'm going to skip the design iteration and move next to some of the examples that I've created in the past year. So this is a visualization that I created that shows standard scatter plot that shows emission reduction versus capital cost. And it shows variety of decarbonization plan. So there was like a preconceived notion when we started, like even when I started, that, okay, if you keep on spending more money, you can get more reduction, more reduction, more reduction. But that's actually not true. After a point, you will reach an equilibrium when you can't make your building any more efficient because it needs that much energy to run itself. So if you look at this chart, you'll see your best bet is to spend money, like spend $800,000 and get 60% reduction. And this would be the best utilization of your funds as this is an optimal point. And you can see multiple plans around that budget, and you can see, like, you can find something that works for you. And this was a really big success. This was, like, by the way, 15th iteration. We did a lot of process before this, but our users loved it. So there was one problem. Not all the users used emission reduction versus capital cost. And when we were talking to them in the discovery phase, we realized that they don't use the same x-axis versus y-axis, but they always use two variables to make these decisions, to find a plan. So instead of adding a dashboard or additional information, what we did was we added an option to change y-axis and x-axis based on what users, in like what their units or what data that they were using for. And this this customization helped 100% of our users to find the best plan, and they started building with moderate exploration, I want to say, without needing the full dashboard. So, but the another problem was because we were working with government and not all agencies had a lot of funding. So to accommodate our non-expert users, we added a toggle that would say, okay, this is great, but only show me recommended plans so I can make decision based on that instead of seeing this 1,000 plans that you're creating. So sometimes adding smaller customizations or micro customizations could help you understand, could help you accommodate a lot of the user types. So next, another example of the data visualization I designed with N0 is a hybrid between line and a stacked bar chart. So this visualization shows the decarbonization roadmap. A lot of the corporations and governments have like these reduction targets where they'll be like, oh, I'm going to go 50% in 2050, 2030. But they would, like, when you tell them to make a decision, like, okay, what are you doing to get to it? They'll be like, oh, it's in 2030 or it's in 2050. Maybe I'll do it later. So adding this view of just transparency, like, okay, you made this goal, but like, we're going to help you get that incrementally. So if you can see here, 2024, we're great, we are on target. And if you move to 2025, you will see that this encourages user to see that, oh, if I want to consistently be on my goal, I need to start creating decarbonization plans now. So I'm going to collect data for next year and hit my reduction goal. So this transparency also helped users understand a lot of context and a lot of decision making there. So last chart. Okay, now I can put this away. So let's say we have explored all the options and we've decided to use a dashboard. If you decide that you want to create a climate dashboard, the idea is to present in really meaningful groups. For instance, you could show usage trends for a state like California or New York, and then break it down by departments with highest usage or efficiency benchmarks. And this incremental depth would reduce redundancy and provide actionable insights for you. So to elaborate, dashboards could be really, really powerful because they allow us to layer information in a way that can drill down from a broad view to very, very specific details. So if you go from, like, you might see, like, like you can start with a statewide trend and you can be like, okay, this is a macro level, my state emissions are going to increase, and that gives you a really macro level perspective. And this is useful in identifying overall patterns and anomalies for different weathers, different states, different locations that you'll be working with. And once you identify a trend, you can then take a deeper dive into the second layer of the data. So in this case, it's departments, and I've like just changed the name because for anonymity. But you can like go in and see, okay, these departments consistently use more energy, and these departments are consistently hitting against efficiency benchmarks, so we can pinpoint where the funds or the improvements are needed more urgently. Moreover, Dash was enabled to visualize complex relationships and dependencies between different data points. And this is really, really crucial in climate data, where understanding the interconnectedness of data drives more effective decision making. For instance, a dashboard could show how the weather pattern would influence energy consumption across different departments. And this could really, really help you to optimize resource allocation and forecast future with more accurate needs. Like you would not want to put solar panels in Seattle. Dash would also facilitate user engagement by making data really interactive. And because some of the users loved this dashboard because they could like filter, sort, customize the view based on their very, very specific needs and work with their stakeholders to figure out the best way to use resource allocation for climate budgets. Furthermore, some of our dashboards that we're working with could incorporate real-time data and providing users with that information, particularly when timely decision-making critical. Like sometimes we were working with the case studies of extreme weather events or where you need immediate energy-saving measures. And in those cases, this real-time dashboards really helped out to figure out where resource allocation should go. So in summary, the single visualization could be very, very effective for focused insights, while dashboard would offer very broad view of data and offer deeper exploration. They bring together diverse data points into cohesive, interactive, and user-friendly format, making them indispensable tools for comprehensive analysis and strategic planning. So thank you so much.
Let's have a chat. All right, if you have questions and you're in person, please line up at the mics. If you are virtual, put them in the platform chat so that we can have somebody ask on your behalf. Well, this is a comment, not really a question, but I liked the combination chart where you have the stacked bars and the line, because I think that's what we hear a lot is like, oh, I mean, it just seems like so in the future, but I love how you made it a little more real by saying, yeah, but you got to do something now. So I loved that. So that was my comment.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right. Oh, all right. You.
Hi. Thank you so much for the presentation. And my question is very simple. It's how do you see climate visualization different from other types of visualization? What are the differences?
Yeah, great question. I worked with a lot of marketing data, so that's my point of reference. But one thing that was very different about climate data was you had to relearn or maybe learn a lot of jargon and a lot of research before you can even start ideating on products itself. Like I spent so many hours with environmental researchers and like environmental consultants and specialists to understand like what does benchmark mean, like what does CBEX benchmark mean, or any of those terms. So when I create products, I can like manage the information gap there. So that's where I think the biggest difference lies, is you have to do a lot of initial understanding even before you start designing.
So and I'm sorry, I forgot to repeat the question, but it was really around how does climate differ from other types? And I think that's interesting because it's like you had to develop a baseline level of domain expertise in order to visualize effectively. Yeah. All right.
Yeah, you had the scatter plot and the really good story of, kind of starting from zero, the capital costs, trying to reduce sort of the climate impact. And it reaches a bit of a sweet spot. And I couldn't remember the exact number.
Yeah.
A certain amount of money, right? And you highlighted like in the blue. And then you said going beyond that, you're actually spending more capital costs, but you're not getting like the benefit of the reduction. Was the rest of the curve, so it looked like it kind of diminished, right? Kind of hit like that plateau. Was way further at the end, it restarted climbing, and then at some point you do reach a capital cost where you can get to 100% reduction. Is that the right way to interpret that curve?
So,
So let me so just to recap super quick, how do you interpret the curve on that graph?
yeah. You can never reach 100% because your building is always going to emit some amount of emissions, right? So the only way you can reach 100% is by adding offsets or something else to your plans, and that's not what we intended to. We wanted to mostly focus on infrastructure changes that could help you reduce your emissions significantly. So it would not reach beyond a point and never go to 100% based on where your building is located or how new, old, or just the building type itself.
And the one follow-up question is, right, the next graph that has the line of like, where's their goal by 35 or 50?
Yeah.
Does it not have the awareness that they're actually going to hit a plateau?
So
They set that goal.
So is there awareness on whether they're going to meet the goal in terms of that next graph?
yeah, so the next graph was like their overall organization goal, right? So they can reach a plateau on a single site and then work on multiple sites to reach the goal. But we always, like when we work with users or clients, we tell them that you can't reach net zero without offsets. So this is the best you can reach, and this is the amount of budget you need for it optimally. So like then you can put your benchmarks and be like, okay, I can spend this money next 20 years or next 25 years and get there.
Thank you.
All right, we have a question from our virtual audience.
This one's from Corey. He asked, I would love to hear how marketing data is similar to climate data in terms of creating dashboards for decision making.
Okay, I need you to repeat that.
This one's from Corey. I would love to hear how marketing data is similar to climate data in terms of creating dashboards for decision making.
Okay, so the question is around how he would love to, or they would love to hear how marketing data differs or is similar to climate data when building out dashboards.
Yeah, interesting question. Never thought about it that way. But a lot of times with marketing data, you get a lot of data. And the data has a lot of granularity because Facebook or other places provides a lot of analytical data for you to play with. But with environmental data, the data quality is just very different. So when you're working with it, you're working with a lot of uncertainties. You have like a lot of things that like, oh, we don't have a data, like we have a really big gap. We don't know what the building type is, and we can't do any forecasting. So like we would have user or someone else to manually fill all the gaps. So one of the biggest differences is just the granularity and the quality of it. And that is also impacted in the visualization or the dashboards you design.
Great. It actually reminds me from a marketing perspective of how, yes, there are a ton of data points out there. However, you can get really granular, but in terms of which color works best in A/B testing. But if companies or people, organizations don't measure that, then that's an amount of uncertainty because they don't know how it affects. So that was like one little common theme for me that as you were speaking, that kind of popped out.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Well, are there any other questions? Want to make sure we give the audience virtually or in person. Oh, yes, we have one.
Hi, I'm interested if you have any stories to share regarding how any of the users or readers have leveraged the dashboards and then how they reacted to it and whether they have been able to obtain any interesting insights out of it. Thank you.
All right, so the question is around business impact, how your readers have leveraged the dashboard and what they've taken away from it.
Yeah, so a couple of things. One, example that comes to mind, I was working with an academic organization a couple of years ago, and we created a community dashboard to show heat risk and flood risk in New York City. And we opened it up to everyone who wanted to explore, in the idea of it would create community engagement on how their neighborhood is impacted, so they can like talk to their government and get a lot of like just pushing a lot of policy decisions. So what we tried in that dashboard is to just simplify everything and just make everything visual, playful. And when you'll see and when you shadow all these people, and you'll see that, oh, they actually went from exploration to taking actions because they actually cared about it, and they could see how like they are going to get impacted personally, and it would just be like a more emotional response. So a lot of use cases for dashboards, but that's something that comes to mind.
Great, thank you. All right, let's give a big clap for Saloni. Thank you.